Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lisa Lunghofer. I am the Executive Director of the Gray Muzzle Organization, and I'm joined by my colleague, Amanda Grant. We are excited about this presentation today by Vicki Ray Thorne, who's going to talk about responsible aromatherapy. So before I introduce Vicki, I just wanted to let you know that we encourage you to ask questions. So you can type your questions into the question and answer box if you're joining us on Zoom, or you can put questions in the comments if you're joining us on Facebook. All right, so with that, I'd like to welcome Vicki Ray Thorne. It was love at first smell when she attended her first aromatherapy intensive in 1992. She'd been diagnosed with fibromyalgia 4 years earlier and was inspired to start making remedies to address her constant pain and stress. Because she was pregnant and had a 5-year-old, she wanted everything to be safe for her entire family and has applied that same level of responsibility to formulating for dogs of all ages. Vicki founded Earth Heart in 1996 to help others learn how to safely and effectively use herbs and essential oils as part of our everyday life. The exploitation of plant habitats and indigenous economies, along with the growing trend toward misleading information, led her to create responsible aromatherapy as the basis of ingredient sourcing and customer education. Vicki holds practitioner certifications in herbalism, aromatherapy, Reiki 2, and holistic cannabis. So please join me in welcoming Vicki. With that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome on this, if you're in Chicago and Texas and I don't know where else, Ohio, wherever, very cold day. And I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to start out with just showing you really quickly what our learning objectives are. I want you to walk away knowing exactly what aromatherapy is and is not, how it works, essential oils that are typically used for common problems, how the safety uses for the whole family, including your senior dogs, recognizing whether an aromatherapy product is responsibly formulated, and how this can fit into your basic wellness program or integrated health program. Aromatherapy is the skilled and controlled use of essential oils by therapeutic inhalation and topical application to restore or maintain health and well-being. The essential oils come from parts of the plant. They are not synthetically replicated in a lab. They come from all parts of the plant, whether it be the rind, flower, leaf, bark, root, or resin, and not all plants have essential oils. They're typically released by steam distillation, cold expression, and extraction with either solvent or CO2. And just to reiterate, fragrance oils, a lot of perfume oils are synthetic and they're not therapeutic and have actually been known to create some problems, headaches, allergies, fatigue. And yes, if you're allergic to a plant, you are quite possibly going to have problems with the essential oils. So if you know, for example, that you're highly allergic to lavender, you might want to stay away from lavender essential oil. The way it works is that the scent molecules enter the bloodstream through the lungs or through the skin. And when the scent molecules are inhaled, the olfactory bulb is connected directly to the limbic system. And so that's where you have that emotional memory, learning, that kind of a thing. And so when you smell something like cinnamon, you might be transported to breakfast at grandma's. You smell even your lover's shirt without any specific fragrance. You might have that feeling. You smell your dog. How many of you love to smell your dog's feet or the back of their neck, and just get a really comforting scent from their inherent scent. That in simplicity is aromatherapy. There's also a physiological response when you apply it to your skin, where it will absorb into the bloodstream and go through the nervous system. For example, lavender has sedative effects on the nervous system, and that's a real physiological effect as well as the emotional response. My aromatherapy teacher of 30 years ago taught us that is a memoristic association when you have that emotional response. So if you have a chemically sedating essential oil like lavender, and she used the example, I think, of a piano teacher who smacked your fingers and she wore lavender cologne. No matter how chemically sedating that lavender is, that negative emotional response can create a negative response to smelling lavender. But in this case, when with dogs, with their incredible sense of smell and their incredible ability to retain scent memory, you can use essential oils to create that bridge of comfort, and take a blend that you like or a lavender with you to your pet sitter, to your groomer, to the boarder, during training, while traveling, when you go to the veterinarian, and it will create that bridge where your pet will remember that this is a scent that is associated with you. Using it with other holistic therapies like Reiki or acupressure, massage, herbs, flower essences, even reward as in training, it can be a treat for them. So aromatherapy does pair well with just about everything else because of that limbic connection. Dogs have 40 times more scent receptors than humans, which allows them to identify a lot more smells than we do and a lot more acute awareness than us. And so when you use essential oils, there again, you can create a calm environment as well as soothing physical problems such as irritated skin or upset tummies. You can repel insects. You can help heal their infections. Essential oils are really pretty amazing. I have been impressed with things that we've been able to do in our family over the past 30 years. Because of dogs loving to be touched as well, and again, that bridge of comfort, you can support the human-animal bond by massaging an essential oil product into your pet's fur, just petting them, spraying your hands with a water-based mist and petting them. You can facilitate behavior modification and improve their health. What I mean by that is that trainers tend to really like using essential oil blend that I make in training. They like to spray the mat. They like to spray their pant legs. They like to spray their hands and maybe pet each dog as they come into the first training class. They're again setting the stage for a calm, focused pet to be able to pay attention to the training regimen rather than maybe the other dogs in the area. It's not 100%, but people have talked about that wonderful focus and calm that they see in their classes. Does anyone have any questions at this time? If not, we'll go on into some specific essential oils. And if you find that you have questions about essential oils that I have not included here, please don't hesitate to ask. I couldn't cover everything that I wanted to in an hour's time. These are some of my favorites. Bergamot is actually a citrus, and it is fantastic for anxiety. So I use it in calming remedies. I use it for PTSD. It's also physically really good for bacterial or fungal infections. And I find when I make a blend, I hate having to name it, because typically a blend that's made for calming in many cases can be used for other things. You know, it's just sort of it's not a 100% or a panacea for everything that ails you, but it's really interesting if you know about the individual ingredients in a blend that you buy or that you make. If some of you are doing it yourselves, you can grab something off the shelf that's already made and use it for fungal ears, as well as for panic or thunderphobia or something like that. So bergamot is also good if you have dogs that tend to get irritable when they're stressed out or depressed, if they experience frustration, snappiness sometimes comes. Now, my dog tends to be that way, and I have found that bergamot is not something that works well for him. Anybody else have that problem? Cedarwood is a really wonderful essential oil that repels certain insects. So it is a good outdoor remedy. And I'm going to interject something here, because a lot of people feel that cedarwood is not safe for dogs. And what I think that they're finding is the Virginia cedarwood that is actually a juniper that can be harsh for their skin and lungs. But if you know the Latin name, Cedrus atlantica at this point, or for this particular essential oil, is one way to know that you're getting what you want, is to know that Latin name. So I'm going to talk about that more later, but I thought it was important here. Cedrus atlantica is also good for hair loss. So if you see Cedrus atlantica in a shampoo, it's probably going to help with a dog that may have some issues with hair loss from stress or something else. It is a good respiratory and circulatory stimulant, and it can be calming when a dog is fearful or timid. Frankincense is one of my very favorite essential oils, and unfortunately now it has gone on to the endangered plant list. So what we are doing with our blends that use frankincense is looking for responsibly sourced product with companies who are replanting trees and harvesting ethically, not taking more than a small percentage of plants, while the older plants and leaving the older plants to repopulate the area. But frankincense is an incredible essential oil for skin and lung and immune system support. It's very calming as well. It's used in a lot of meditative blends because it slows the breathing, so that if somebody is in a panic and needs and is very fearful of thunder or something else, it can slow the breathing and help them calm down by oxygenating their tissues. Another really good essential oil for many things is geranium. And there again, Pelargonian graveolens is the one that we want. It's great for hormonal balance, for greasy or flaky skin. So it would be good in a bath product or a shampoo. It's good for fungal infections. It can repel ticks and lice. And it's very calming and balancing for emotional issues, and especially if your dog feels insecure. Ginger is another favorite essential oil for me. It helps with nausea, vomiting, and it's used in a blend I make for travel for that reason. It's also really good for joint pain, for circulatory congestion, respiratory congestion, even respiratory infections. So, so it's an overall great product to have. And with nausea and vomiting, sometimes you want to use ginger crackers, something that has the grated ginger into a cookie or a cracker or a biscuit. And you can certainly do that along with using a spray that might contain ginger essential oil to apply to the tummy or to the ear flaps, and approach it in a couple of different ways. It just depends on how severe the nausea is for your dog, and what kind of attention they like when they're feeling down. If your dog really needs to be touched when it's feeling sick or stressed, sometimes that touch is therapy by itself, and the essential oil in the biscuit is just a fringe benefit, an add-on. Lavender is one of the most well-known essential oils, and it is just a fantastic plant. And again, you want to use lavender that's not the garden hybrids. It should be Lavandula angustifolia or Lavandula officinalis. Those are the two Latin names. It's great for skincare, any kind of skincare you can think of. And thinking about for yourself too, it's great for sunburn. If you have a light-skinned, short-haired dog that does get a sunburn, you can use lavender for that as well. Itching, fever, it will help bring down a fever. It will help relieve palpitations. It's great for infections. It can help as an insect repellent. Probably along with the geranium and cedar wood would be great. Agitation, any kind of fear, any kind of stress, whether it's travel or thunder phobia, fireworks phobia, parties, anything, sleeplessness. There are people I know who spray their beds with a lavender-based product, and it's a nighttime ritual at bedtime. And it works for you and your kids too. Sweet marjoram is another of my very favorites. And there again, Oreganum majorana, that Latin name is really important, because sometimes thyme, for example, is called marjoram, or marjoram is called thyme erroneously, and they're very, very different essential oil uses. Thymus vulgaris is more for infections, and sweet marjoram is more for digestive cramps, palpitations. It can be used as a substitute for tea tree. It has a better scent. It has a gentler action. And a lot of tea tree anymore is adulterated, so you have to be careful where you source it. Marjoram is really relaxing. It has a sedative effect, and it's especially good for grief, anxiety, nervousness, worry. And I have in here too that it's good for excess sexual energy. So it's the opposite of an aphrodisiac. It's called an anaphrodisiac, a not aphrodisiac. So if you have a pup that is overly excitable in the sexual area, a little bit of marjoram can help reduce and balance that.
Hey, Vicki, we do have a few questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask them just in the order they came in. Denise would like to know, what is the difference between an essential oil and a flower essence?
Oh, that's a good question. An essential oil is typically distilled or extracted. It's the aromatic component of the plant part that is captured in steam distillation or CO2 extraction. A flower essence is prepared through a different infusion method, and it is more of a subtle energy product. that works on a deep emotional level. They don't typically have a scent. They're not aromatic, but they're very complementary to use with essential oils. And there was a time I was actually working with putting essential oils or putting flower essences into my essential oil remedies. But I didn't get enough feedback on it to make it something that I was continuing to pursue. So does that answer your question? That you have a flower essence that is, and it's just the flowers. That's the only plant part. It is flowers. And at least in the old days, last century, they used to infuse the flowers in water in the sunshine. And I have not kept up with that enough to know if they're still doing that. I'm sure on small scales there are companies that do, but they are really fabulous for dogs who are uber sensitive emotionally. It can help turn that corner, like rescue remedy. It can help relieve shock. It can help relieve big fear of the unknown. My dog has a lot of fear issues. I think as a rescue, we know he was hit because when you reach for a broom handle, he runs away. And if you, or, you know, anything with a handle like that, men who wear cowboy hats, he wants to rip their faces off. It's, so we know something horrible happened to him. And I've tried to work with flower essences with him and he won't take them, which I find interesting because I've tried rescue remedy. I put a drop in his water bowl. He walks away from the water bowl. He can tell it's in there. So energetically, he's not willing to go to that place. Maybe I haven't found the right one. That's probably what it is. Some of the classic essential oils that work on everybody's dog but mine don't work with him, but I'm making new blends based on what does work for him. So sorry for that tangent.
That's really interesting though. And Denise did say, yes, thank you. That answers her question. Linda wants to know, is bergamot good for humans with the same issues that you mentioned for dogs?
Yes, everything I'm talking about here works with humans, canines, and equines. In my early research, I found that a lot of the original research was done on dogs and horses because their body physiology is similar to ours. And so we actually do promote our product line as canine, equine, and human friendly. And so that's going to bring up the issue about cats, I know, and we're going to talk about that later. But yes, everything that we talk about here is going to be safe for you as a human as well as your dog.
Chris would like to know, would you recommend ginger for reflux?
You have to be careful with that because it can be very stimulating. I would say with reflux, what you would want to do is this for you or for your dog?
They didn't mention. I'll see.
Might not matter, but I would smell it. A lot of times what you can do is take either a slice of ginger root, or you can take the essential oil, and I tend to take the cap because it's not quite as strong as inhaling it right out of the bottle. Or you can put it in some coconut oil, a drop in coconut oil, and rub it on your hands and smell it and see if that helps with the reflux. Another thing that you can try is if you have reflux, a lot of times your heartburn is caused by a diaphragm. Your diaphragm is too tight. And so if you can gently palpate with your fingertips underneath your rib cage at the bottom of your base of your sternum, and sort of gently push in along the bottom of your rib cage until you find a tender point, and then doesn't have to hurt. We don't want it to hurt, but you'll find that if you can hold it, maybe make little circles in both directions for 5 or 10 minutes, that your heartburn will relieve. And it's actually that the sphincter is open because of diaphragmatic tension, and not, and if you, so there again, if you relax your diaphragm, you can relax that. And you could rub some lavender or ginger essential oil, diluted, I want to say, we'll get to those recipes later, but diluted essential oil onto those trigger points as well. The next thing then to check on with reflux is whether or not you have a weak pelvic floor. And how do you know that with your dog? Probably because there's been some issues and you've taken your dog or you've taken yourself to your doctors. And that's what you want to do first, is find out kind of what's going on in the pelvic floor. And if your pelvic floor is sagging, it again pulls down your diaphragm and everything just sort of starts to prolapse and opens up your esophagus. And I'm talking from personal experience. So, so that I've been working with that. Does that answer your question?
Chris did follow up and say that this was in reference to a basset hound.
Okay.
I will see if, yes, great suggestions. Thank you.
Okay.
And another question from Denise, are essential oils more effectively applied under the tongue or to the ear flaps like you mentioned?
Oh, yeah, you do not want to take essential oils internally. And that is some of the misinformation out there that I alluded to earlier, that unless you're working with a clinical aromatherapist or a clinical animal aromatherapist, you don't want to take essential oils internally. Flower essences can go under the tongue, but essential oils should be diluted and down to about 1 to 5 drops in an ounce of a carrier. We'll get into this more in a little bit, and rubbing it on their outer ears is really good, because if you think about T-touch and how they like to have their ears tugged and that can be relaxing, there's that component to it, that they like to have their ears tugged. Well, if your dog doesn't, then you'd have to do something else. But, and also all the blood vessels in the outer ears that will help to carry the essential oil components into the bloodstream very quickly. Sometimes you can see almost immediate results by rubbing a diluted essential oil into the outer ears.
That's all our questions for now on Zoom.
Okay. We're almost finished. These are the last 4 essential oils that I'm going to talk about, unless people want to hear about a couple others. Niuli is related to tea tree. It's a melaleuca, just like tea tree, but it's a lot gentler. And so I like it. And there again, I mentioned earlier, a lot of tea tree has been adulterated, and that means that it's either something else is mixed with it. And, you know, there are regulatory issues where you can call something 100% fill in the blank, and it's really only 80% because they're allowed to, you know, adulterate it with something else, another component. But Niuli has a gentler smell than tea tree, and it's gentler on the skin and lungs and mucous membranes. It does all of the things that tea tree does. It's great for first aid, allergies, infections, immune system support. So I highly recommend, if you haven't tried, it'll be sold either as Melaleuca quinquenervia or Melaleuca viridiflora, or the two combined. Sometimes they mix the two, and it can also be just called MQV instead of Niuli. Ravencer is another very favorite of mine. for immune system support, for fatigue, for viral infections, for feelings of overwhelm. I've read where you can use Ravencer after immunizations if your dog tends to have a reaction to immunizations, that it will help to relieve those side effects. And it's also good for humans for chronic fatigue. It can help energize you and lift that mental fog that comes with chronic fatigue. Tangerine is another citrus that I really like, and it's calming, it's uplifting, it's great for use with fear. And tangerine is one of the few citrus oils that does not have the component that will cause phototoxicity if you're outside using it. Most of the citrus oils, you need to wait for at least an hour before you go outside if you've used it, or you can cause a photosensitive reaction. Tangerine does not have that component, and the bergamot that I use is an FCF-free bergamot. It takes out that coumarin that causes the photosensitivity. So that's a couple good things to know. And the last essential oil in specific I'm going to talk about is Ilangilan. It's great for hypertension for a low libido, so the opposite of marjoram. It's great for hair loss. There have been clinical studies I've read with humans that it can help with nervous bladder issues, which can be really important with a dog as well. It's great for lack of confidence, for insecurity. I find it to be a very cloying essential oil by itself, so I like to use it with a citrus oil. The citrus oil is a little bit sharper and tends to brighten the scent. And I also like Ilangilan with lavender and marjoram. The marjoram can smell a little bit like pizza. It's in that same class as, oregano and thyme and things, but it works really nicely with something as strong and cloying as Ilangilan. And boy, if you've got a dog that needs to slow down, that combination of lavender and Ilangilan and marjoram could be really helpful. I also want to address that I have had people write to me about in anger that I use Ilangilan with dogs because it's toxic, because they read somewhere online that it's toxic. And I've followed up their claims, and I wouldn't use something that was toxic for dogs. I've been doing aromatherapy for 30 years, and safety has been always my top priority. And so I keep up with the research. I have tried to look for studies that have shown Ilangilan to be toxic to dogs, and it's not. These were even on some very reputable canine websites that I saw these blog posts, and somebody, unfortunately, somebody will write something and then a lot of other people pick it up and forward it, and that's where these kinds of rumors get started. But Ilangilan is not toxic to dogs. None of them on this list are toxic unless the dog drank, a couple ounces of undiluted essential oil. And that can happen with people too. Your body tries to detoxify and it goes too quickly and you can have problems. But when it's properly, responsibly diluted, none of these essential oils are going to hurt your dog unless they're highly allergic to the plant. Any questions before we go on?
Yes, Chris asks, would you recommend using oils in a diffuser for separation anxiety, and which oil is best?
Good question. Diffusers are really nice to use because they can, you know, do a whole area in a short time. Lavender is classic, geranium, frankincense, maybe the bergamot. There again, if there's a scent that your dog associates with you, and one of the things I suggest is that when you work with essential oils at the beginning, make a spray or a lotion and put some on your pant legs, down, you know, near the nose, or rub some on your hands and sit down and cuddle with your dog on the couch or on the floor in bed when it's not a stressful time, and see how the dog responds to that essential oil or that blend. That way, that's where you start to build that bridge of comfort, that recognition that this signifies mom, this signifies comfort and safety. And then when there's an issue around needing to be separated from you or a thunderstorm rolling in, you can use that scent and it should give that same sense of calm. There was a woman who had a dog named Abby, who had the worst separation anxiety. And what they ended up doing was getting Abby into competitions and building up her confidence. And that helped, but she didn't like being back with the other dogs away from her dog parents before the competition. And so they reached out to me because nothing else had helped, and got one of our products called Canine Calm. And she started using it on rubbing her ears and spraying her crate pillow. They also bought a calming biscuit of some kind, and they added music a little bit later, some kind of calming music. And the dog was absolutely fine. And as soon as her crate was opened to go do the competition, she was filled with energy and went out and did her job. And then she'd come back into the crate and chill. Before they started using the Canine Calm and the music, she was still very whiny and not as focused in her competitive exercises. They also found that before Canine Calm, they would leave her in the crate and she would hop the crate across the room, that when they got home a few hours later, they couldn't get their door open because she had hopped the crate over to block the door. Once they started using the Canine Calm, she would stay in her crate until they came home. So that's one of my favorite stories. But like I say, in different situations, they did use calming biscuits and the music. And I think that's fabulous. I have my degree in music. And so, you know, music is one of those multi-sensory, and I'm a foodie. So I like the idea of using scent, taste, music, and then of course, touch and sight. You know, if you can use all of your senses to wrap around your dog, I just think that that's the best thing for me, is having that multi-sensory comfort. And so why not for your animals too? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's very helpful.
Great. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes left, and I want to go through some safety issues. And just to let you know that this is very potent medicine. And so when I say you need to dilute it, here's an example. 200 pounds of lavender flower makes 1 pound of lavender essential oil. So it's not just that it isn't safe to do that 200 to 1 concentration. It really isn't necessary. Clinical studies have shown that as little as 0.25% of an essential oil in, let's say, coconut oil, fractionated coconut oil, is very effective. And 2% tends to be maybe the maximum of what you need. Well, then it saves you money too. So it's not only safer, it saves you money because essential oils are not inexpensive. 2 ways to use it: topical application and inhalation. Not internal use unless it's advised by your healthcare professional trained in clinical aromatherapy. With that said, if you have a paw balm or a spray or a roll-on that has essential oils in it and your dog licks it off the paws, it's not going to hurt. Because especially if you're blending at that less than 1% threshold, there just isn't enough in there to cause a problem unless there's an allergy to something. Another great safety tip is that essential oils are not water soluble. That means that they'll float on the top of a spray unless it's emulsified. So they are, however, fat soluble. So products that come in oil, in lotion, butters are great. So a coconut oil roll-on or a paw balm that's made with all fats and waxes are fabulous because the essential oil will stay in a homogeneous solution or distribution within that product. And you won't have to worry about getting too much because it's floating on the top. There again, start with the lowest dilution possible for desired results. And this is actually very similar to what I learned 30 years ago with humans, is that if you use 10 drops with yourself, you would use 5 drops with your child and 1 to 2 drops with your infant, if at all. And typically we don't want to start to use essential oils with anyone less than 10 weeks old. And we want to be very careful about the kinds of essential oils. Something that is very camphoraceous, like rosemary or eucalyptus. If it's inhaled in an undiluted form, it can actually cause a coughing spasm in a young child or in a puppy, even in yourself. So you need to be careful with that. But it is safe to use essential oils in very minute doses, even for dogs that might have compromised immune systems or other serious health issues. And please stop me here if you have any questions. There is a practice called drop therapies, which are not safe. They're undiluted oils that are typically used on humans anyway, along the spine. And there's a website that I'm part of that collects damage done by essential oils, and most reports of that kind of damage, whether it be skin ulcerations or sometimes it's collapse, either lung collapse or just collapse of, fainting. It's caused by an overuse of undiluted essential oils. Drop therapies sometimes put 100 drops of undiluted essential oils along the spine. You also need to really know what's going on with your dog or yourself. And if you do have damaged skin, highly inflamed skin, you might not even want to put anything on that area. Some of the products like Niuli and Frankincense and Lavender can be really good for treating skin issues, but if it's severely damaged, it can burn even in a really minute amount. So you just have to be careful. I hope I'm not scaring you. I'm just trying to be cautious. I want to step back into diffusing because what we have also found is that 15 minutes once or twice a day is usually sufficient. And even if you're trying to cleanse the air during flu season, so you can just turn on your diffuser, whether it's for separation anxiety, for a thunderstorm that's approaching, for seasonal allergies are coming up, and turn it on for 15 minutes and then turn it off and let the air clear out. You can do longer exposure in a room that's very open, a floor plan that's very open, or a business or something with high ceilings and good ventilation, up to 1 to 2 hours. But you always want to take a break after diffusing for at least as long as you've diffused. Does that make sense? Keep your diffusers away from infants, toddlers, cats, bird cages. They found that essential oils and birds are deadly. So it's like Teflon, cooking with Teflon, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. And they're really not, you know, reptiles and rodents they don't work so well either. Cats. This is a really mixed bag. You want your cats, if you're diffusing, just make sure your cat isn't locked in a room with a diffuser. Let the cat come and go as it pleases. Because there again, if you're diffusing, there's very few parts per million in the air. And especially if you're only diffusing for 15 minutes and then letting the room air out, your cat's undoubtedly going to be okay. I mentioned this earlier. They're not water soluble. The essential oils are not water soluble. They float on top of water if not emulsified. So I put this in about the bath only because if you're taking a bath, you want to be sure and put, you know, maybe a couple drops of lavender into a milk solution or an oil solution before you add it to the bath water. Because think about if you just put essential oil on the water and it's floating on top, and then you step in the water and sit down, it could be attracted to some pretty sensitive parts. So there again, mix it in something with fat, get in the water first, and then put it in. A water-based spray needs an emulsifier, which can be soap. It can be something like polysorbate 20. The polysorbates are controversial. I still believe that polysorbate 20 is a safe emulsifier, but we've recently changed. We now use a sunflower and honeysuckle preservative system so that we can say that our products are 100% plant-derived ingredients. And we're very proud of that and looked for a long time to be able to do that. But if you have essential oils with an emulsifier, you have a uniform mixture so that when you squeeze it out or spray your hands, you're getting the same amount of essential oil in each application, in each spray, and each squeeze. You're not having something sitting on the top, eroding that, potentially that plastic dip wand, dip tube in the spray, or even eroding the bottle. And although essential oils have antimicrobial properties, they won't prevent microbial formation in the water. So a preservative, we used to use potassium sorbate because it was derived from the mountain ash. It then came to be synthesized in the lab. So there again, we've switched to that honeysuckle and sunflower preservative system. But you will have bacteria growing in the water in as close to 3 days. And I know this for a fact because I was a purist and I was not going to use any kind of those chemicals in my products 20 some years ago. And I had some of the strongest antimicrobial essential oils in water. And I picked up a bottle after a few weeks and there was looked like a cotton ball in the water, and it was mold. We talked about citrus oils causing photosensitivity if applied within an hour of exposure. Again, just some basic precautions to keep the essential oils, whether they're undiluted or in a product. Keep it out of reach of pets and children. Don't apply it near the eyes or in the eyes or ears, the nostrils, anal or genital areas. And if you do get essential oils or product in those areas, don't use water because they're not water soluble. You want to take milk, yogurt, vegetable oil on a cotton swab and, you know, gently swab from the inner corner out. Or if it's, you know, on the any other part, just gently wipe with something fat soluble. And let's store our products away from direct heat and sunlight. So undiluted essential oils should only be in glass bottles with a drip top, not with an eyedropper, because that rubber on top on the eyedropper will disintegrate. But your diluted products can be stored in glass or in PET plastic, which is nicknamed the glass of plastic. Everybody with me? Cats can react negatively to some essential oils, so you want to use products in room there again where they can easily leave. There is another byproduct of distillation called hydrosols. And they are water-based, and they tend to have the pH closest to our skin, so they're very gentle, and they can be used safely with cats. I have custom made some things with hydrosols for people with cats, specifically a lavender and chamomile hydrosol spray, and it's worked really, really, really well. I haven't brought that into my product line officially because they're very fragile. And they need to be stored in the refrigerator if they don't have a preservative system in them. And people have been leery of putting preservatives in hydrosols just because of their gentle nature and their fragility. But I want to try doing something with our new sunflower honeysuckle preservative in hydrosols, because that's probably the biggest question I get is, when are you going to do something for cats? Again, don't use it with birds. Don't put it in the fish tank. Don't put it in the reptile cage or any of other little habitat. We've been through this, so I'm not going to read this to you. Everybody is welcome to get a PDF of the slides, to have all this information if you'd like. But I want to stress that less is more. Labeling. Authentic aromatherapy products use the botanical names, that two-word Latin name. For example, over on where it says 100% plant-derived ingredients. Whoops. We have citrus bergamia, which is the FCF-free bergamot, the stuff that helps prevent photosensitivity. Citrus reticulata, which is tangerine. And we list all of our ingredients. We have total transparency in our ingredients. We are now working with someone who is helping us to source responsibly and make sure that we aren't using essential oils that have been exploited, that have exploited habitats or indigenous economies. There should also be precautions on the label, just to remind you how to store them and how to keep everybody safe. They should have the manufacturer. They should have the volume. And there can be some instructions that hopefully are clear. Hard to get on little bottles. Another thing to look at here is to keep things simple, because too many ingredients can make it difficult to pinpoint whether or not something's working. If you buy a blend that has 20 essential oils in it, it's overcomplicated, and the reactions between each essential oil can it can go crazy in your body. Sometimes just lavender in coconut oil is enough, or lavender diffused, or tangerine diffused is enough. And so I advise you to, or I suggest to you to start simply. More than 6 essential oils can weaken the blend's effectiveness and can create reactions within the that people don't always understand yet. I've taken aromatic chemistry classes, and they don't always understand exactly how the components interrelate, and but they know that too much is not a good thing. And there again, if your dog has a reaction to it, and there's 20 essential oils, which one? How do you know what to avoid next time? Misleading claims is another big thing with me. There is no regulatory agency that grades essential oils, so it's a pure essential oil. Therapeutic grade, medical grade, pharmaceutical grade. It's purely a marketing ploy. There are no cure-alls. It's the age, the temperament, the health, scent preferences. That is what contributes to which essential oils are appropriate for use with you and your dog. And of course, the use of essential oils does not replace qualified medical consultation or treatment. As a certified herbalist and aromatherapist, I may not treat, prescribe, oh gosh, what's the third one? Anyway, diagnose. I cannot diagnose, treat, or prescribe because I am not a medically trained person. These are the tenets of our responsible aromatherapy that, and it's all about allowing you to have control over the amount and frequency of the dosage. So there again, every situation is unique. Every dog, horse, person is unique. And you need to find out what works for you. We've talked about resource protection and the fact that diluting an essential oil protects the overharvesting and exploitation of depressed economies. Diluting also helps prevent irritation to the skin and mucous membranes. It's more cost effective, and as a certified aromatherapist, I am taught to use the minimum amount for the biggest result. And so I want to avoid sensitization or other damage. So I've given you some resources as well that I used in preparing this and that I use on a weekly basis at least. And here is how to find me. So if there are any more questions, I'm here for a couple minutes yet. And I really want to thank you all for hanging out on this wonderful Thursday afternoon. And if you want to ask any other questions, you can email me at vicki@earthheartinc.com. And I'm starting to get back into to doing more with social media. I haven't been real good with that, but I'm getting back on board.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Vicki. That was really informative. Amanda, any last questions that you're seeing?
No, just a few thank yous and people confirming that we can send a copy of the slides.
Great.
Terrific. Yep, we will absolutely do that, and we'll have a recording available, and we'll share that as well. So with that, thank you again, Vicki. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and passion for this topic. We hope everybody enjoyed the webinar, and we will see you all again next month. Talking about compassion fatigue is the topic of our next webinar. All right, until then, thanks everybody. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.